Holger Rune never meant to say it. It was supposed to be a routine interview. A harmless question about fellow players. A quick answer. Move on. But once the words left his mouth, once that brief pause stretched just a second too long, once that almost involuntary smile crossed his face, there was no taking it back. He said her name. Alex. The way he hesitated, the way his eyes shifted, the subtle change in his tone. The tennis world noticed everything. And in a sport where every gesture is analyzed frame by frame, that tiny moment turned into something far bigger than anyone expected. What followed transformed what seemed like private admiration into one of the most talked about revelations in tennis, sparking debates about respect, recognition, and what happens when two young stars carrying the weight of their nation suddenly become the center of an internet storm neither of them asked for. Because in professional tennis, some players don't just carry rackets onto the court. They carry countries. Holger Rune, Denmark's fiery young sensation with the explosive backhand and relentless intensity, became that figure for his nation. At just 21, he had already broken into the ATP Top 10, defeated Grand Slam champions, and positioned himself as one of the most dangerous young players in men's tennis. His rise wasn't just impressive. It felt necessary. Denmark hadn't seen a tennis star of this magnitude in generations. Every match Rune played felt like more than a ranking battle. It felt like national representation. And across the tennis world, on the WTA side, Alex Eala was living a parallel story. To the Philippines, she wasn't just a player. She was a breakthrough, a pioneer, the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam title at any level when she captured the US Open Girls Championship, the first to climb into the WTA Top 200, then Top 150, then Top 100. Every match she stepped into wasn't just about prize money or points. It was about proving that a country of over 110 million belonged on the biggest stages of professional tennis. Their paths crossed quietly at combined ATP, WTA events. The tennis circuit is smaller than people think. The same hotels, the same practice courts, the same physio rooms. Future legends sitting beside qualifiers in player lounges. Ice baths at midnight. Jet-lag conversations at 3 a.m. in nearly empty hallways. Rune and Eala moved in the same ecosystem, sometimes just courts apart, yet never truly sharing the same spotlight. He was chasing Masters 1,000 titles and Grand Slam breakthroughs. She was grinding through WTA 125 tournaments, climbing step by step, building her legacy match by match. But here's what made their dynamic fascinating. They were mirrors of each other in different arenas, both carrying crushing national expectations, both breaking through at impossibly young ages, both trying to survive the dangerous transition from promising talent to proven elite, and both understanding the quiet loneliness of representing your entire country in an individual sport where there is nowhere to hide and no one to share the burden when things fall apart. Tennis players notice each other. They watch matches on locker room TVs. They scroll scores after practice. They understand the sacrifices behind every breakthrough in a way fans never fully can. So when Alex Eala won important matches, broke new barriers, and continued climbing, other players paid attention, including Holger Rune. No one realized how closely he had been watching. Not his team, not the press, not the tennis gossip accounts that dissect every player interaction. Not until that interview. Not until that split second when his carefully constructed professional composure slipped just enough to reveal something genuine, something unscripted, something that felt like more than routine respect. Because in tennis, and in life, it's often the unguarded moments that reveal the most truth. The second where the script disappears. The second where authenticity breaks through. And once it does, the world watches. This is the story of one of those moments, and what it revealed about admiration, pressure, and two young athletes suddenly navigating a tension neither of them ever anticipated. It was supposed to be routine. A standard post-practice media session at a Masters 1000 event. The kind Holger Rune had done hundreds of times. The kind where journalists ask predictable questions and players deliver polished, Careful answers that fulfill obligations without actually revealing anything personal. The setting was relaxed, a shaded corner near the practice courts. The sharp pop of tennis balls echoed in the background. Rune sat in his training gear, towel over his shoulders, looking calm, ready to get through 15 minutes of media talk and return to preparing for his next match. The first questions were exactly what you'd expect. How's your preparation? How's the draw looking? How's the knee after missing the last tournament? Rune answered smoothly. Yes, he felt good. Yes, the knee was fine. Yes, he was excited for the challenge. Professional.
Polished.
Forgettable. Then came the question that changed everything. Holger, you've mentioned before that you watch other young players and learn from different styles. With the WTA here this week as well, are there any rising women's players you admire or pay attention to? It was meant to be filler. A harmless question. The journalist probably expected a safe answer. Coco Gauff. Maybe Mira Andreeva. The obvious names. The trending names. But Rune didn't give the obvious answer.
He paused.
And it wasn't a normal pause. Not the brief hesitation of someone crafting a diplomatic response. This pause was longer. Noticeable. His eyes shifted slightly to the left, that unconscious movement people make when accessing real memory rather than rehearsed lines. And then he smiled. Not the media-trained smile. Not the controlled, careful expression. This smile was different. Unscripted. Almost shy. Almost caught off guard. The kind of smile someone gives when asked about something they genuinely care about before remembering that cameras are rolling. Alex Eala. He said her name softly, warmer than his previous answers. There was an unmistakable shift in his tone. I think what she's doing for Filipino tennis is incredible, he continued. The way she fights in every match, the way she's had to qualify and grind through smaller tournaments to earn main tour opportunities, it's really impressive. The journalists sensed it immediately. You could hear the change in their voices. That subtle sharpening of curiosity when something authentic slips through. You follow her results? Another pause. Rune shifted in his seat. For just a split second, the confident ADP top 10 star disappeared, and what viewers saw instead was a 21-year-old who had just realized he'd revealed more than he intended. I mean, yeah, I think a lot of us do, he said carefully. Then he continued, and this is where everything changed. She has a really complete game. Her movement is excellent. And her mental strength, especially in tight matches, that's something you can't coach. You either have it or you don't. She has it. That was the moment. The specificity. Rune wasn't offering empty praise. He didn't default to the generic athlete script. She's talented. She works hard. Great competitor. The standard lines players use when they're being polite, but not particularly invested. He highlighted movement. He emphasized mental strength under pressure. Those aren't surface-level observations. That's technical analysis. That's someone who has watched full matches. More than one. It sounded like someone who paid attention. The journalist sensed it immediately. Have you two ever practiced together? Talked about tennis? Rune's expression shifted again. He knew now this was no longer filler content. We've talked a few times at tournaments, just player lounge stuff, he said. But she's really dedicated. I respect that. And then he delivered the line that would ignite the tennis internet. She's someone I think is going to surprise a lot of people. She has everything it takes to break into the top 50, maybe higher. And when she does, people will realize how special she is. Not if.
When.
That single word carried certainty. Investment.
Belief.
That was when the interview stopped being routine and became something else entirely. The remaining minutes drifted back to safer territory, serve mechanics, tournament strategy, preparation routines. But it didn't matter. The moment had already happened. Within an hour, the clip was online. Within 2 hours, it was everywhere. Tennis Twitter, Instagram Reels, TikTok edits. Filipino fan accounts began posting emotional compilations titled Holger Rune Speaks About Alex Eala, set to dramatic background music. Within 6 hours, gossip pages were sharing side-by-side photos of Rune and Eala with captions loaded with speculation. He hadn't said anything inappropriate. He hadn't crossed any lines. But he had done something athletes are carefully trained not to do. He was authentic. And authenticity on the internet spreads like wildfire. What followed wasn't just fan curiosity. It became a full-scale digital investigation. If there's one thing tennis fans have mastered through long rain delays and endless off-season boredom, it's detective work. The tennis internet shifted into investigative mode. Threads appeared analyzing his tone. Slow-motion replays zoomed in on the smile. People compared the warmth in his voice when he said Alex to the flat delivery of his previous answers. Fans began asking, how long has he been following her matches? When did this start? Was this just professional respect? Or something deeper? It began with a simple tweet from a Filipino fan account. Holger talking about Alex with that smile. I see you, Holger eyes, and from there, the theories multiplied. Screenshots surfaced of him liking tournament posts that featured her. Old tournament footage was rewatched to see if they'd crossed paths in player lounges. Combined event photos were scanned for background appearances. What had started as a harmless media answer was now being dissected frame by frame. And neither of them had asked for any of it. Because in modern sports culture, admiration can turn into narrative overnight. Respect can turn into rumor. A smile can become a storyline. And for two young athletes already carrying the expectations of entire nations, the sudden spotlight wasn't just flattering. It was heavy. What began as a simple moment of sincerity was about to become something much bigger than either of them expected. Within minutes, the quote tweets exploded. Fans replayed the clip over and over, dissecting every micro-expression. The way he paused before saying her name, he said when, not if. Professional athletes don't talk like that unless it means something. The narrative was building in real time. And then the real detective work began. Someone decided to scroll back through Holger Rune's social media history, not casually, but strategically, searching for every possible interaction he'd ever had with Alex Eala. That's when things escalated. A fan uncovered a 7-month-old training photo Alex had posted from Spain. It was a normal athlete upload, mid-forehand swing, caption about hard work, sponsor tags. Nothing out of the ordinary. Except 73 comments down, buried where almost no one would normally look, was a single fire emoji. From Holger Rune's verified account. At the time, it meant nothing. Rune had hundreds of thousands of followers. Eala had her own growing audience. Athletes support each other online all the time.
But now?
In the context of that interview, the smile, the technical breakdown of her game, the confident when she does, that emoji felt different. It felt intentional. Then came another discovery. A screenshot surfaced from one of Eala's Instagram story viewers months earlier, celebrating her first WTA main draw win. According to the circulating image, Rune's account was among the viewers. Instagram story views aren't public, but in the age of screenshots, nothing truly stays private. Suddenly, fans were stitching together a timeline. He watched her posts. He reacted to her content. He noticed her milestones. What might have been simple professional awareness was now being interpreted as something more deliberate. Then someone dug up a photo from Indian Wells, a combined ATP WTA event. The original post was nothing special, just a wide-angle practice court shot from a tennis photographer's archive. It had barely received attention months ago, but if you looked closely, there they were, Rune and Eala standing near the court entrance.
Talking. Smiling.
Body language relaxed. Comfortable. The image spread like wildfire. They've been talking. Look at how he's looking at her. This didn't just start with the interview. Within hours, YouTube thumbnails appeared. Holger Rune's secret crush exposed. Why Alex Eala has ATP players watching closely. What had started as respectful praise was turning into a storyline neither athlete had written. And that's the thing about the modern sports internet. It doesn't need confirmation. It thrives on interpretation. It turns patterns into narratives. Suddenly, every archived interaction became evidence. Every shared venue became proof. Every smile became chemistry. Lost in the frenzy was a simpler possibility, that two young athletes, carrying enormous national pressure, recognized something familiar in each other. The grind, the scrutiny, the loneliness of being your country's hope in an individual sport. But subtlety doesn't trend. Speculation does. And the louder the internet became, the more complicated things were about to get. Not just for Rune, but for Alex, whose name was now being pulled into a storm she hadn't created. The algorithm did what it always does. It amplified. Within hours, videos were being pushed to hundreds of thousands of tennis fans, many of whom had never followed Holger Rune or Alex Eala closely before. But suddenly, they were invested. Not in rankings, not in match stats, in a storyline. TikTok became its own universe of edits and speculation. Creators stitched together slow-motion clips of Rune's backhand winners with Eala's forehand highlights, overlaying trending songs about unspoken feelings and quiet admiration. One viral edit compared their court positioning and shot selection, pointing out similarities in how they step into inside-out forehands and construct points from the baseline. The caption? Maybe they've talked strategy, eyes. That video hit too. 3 million views. On Reddit, the tennis community launched a mega thread titled, "The Rune-Eala Situation. Everything We Know." Users cataloged every known interaction, every overlapping tournament, every academy connection. Someone found that both had trained at the Muradoglu Academy at different times, and theorized that perhaps they'd been aware of each other long before the public noticed. Another user resurfaced an old Eala interview where she mentioned practicing with male players to increase power and tempo. Speculation intensified. The Filipino tennis community was experiencing something entirely new. Alex Eala had already put the Philippines on the tennis map through historic achievements, her US Open Junior title, her steady climb up the WTA rankings, her role as a trailblazer. But this was different. This was a top 10 ADP player publicly praising her, with detail, conviction, and warmth. Manila morning radio shows discussed it. Sports talk programs debated it. It crossed over from sports into entertainment news. National pride blended with internet intrigue. Yet not everyone was celebrating. As the edits multiplied and headlines grew more dramatic, a backlash began to take shape. Some of Eala's most dedicated supporters raised a pointed question. Why is this the moment she's going viral globally? One tweet gained over 15,000 likes. She's an incredible player on her own. She doesn't need validation from a male player to be worthy of attention. The fact that this is what finally gives her international buzz is honestly sad. That sparked a second wave of debate, one less romantic and more critical. Was the coverage unintentionally reducing her accomplishments to a subplot in a male star's narrative? Was admiration turning into overshadowing? Danish fans had mixed reactions as well. Some found Rune's comments refreshing, evidence that he was thoughtful, observant human. Others worried it would become a distraction. He needs to focus on his season, one forum post read. Media drama is the last thing he needs. Even seasoned tennis journalists were uncertain. One respected reporter posted, "I've covered tennis for 20 years. Players praise each other all the time. But the way Rune spoke about Eala, that level of technical knowledge combined with personal conviction, that was unusual." And then the situation escalated further. Fans discovered that Rune and Eala were both entered in an upcoming combined ADP WTA event just 2 weeks away. Suddenly, anticipation skyrocketed. Fan accounts started countdown clocks. 14 days until Rune and Eala at the same tournament. Betting markets, usually limited to match outcomes, reportedly began offering novelty wagers on whether they would be photographed together. What started as a single interview quote had evolved into the season's most unexpected subplot. But beneath the excitement, something heavier was building. A deeper conversation about privacy, about media responsibility, about how quickly admiration can morph into intrusion, and about how women in tennis often receive heightened attention only when linked to a male counterpart, rather than for their own achievements. The story had gone far beyond a smile and a prediction. It had become a mirror, reflecting how modern sports culture consumes narrative, how algorithms reward speculation, and how two young athletes carrying national expectations can suddenly find themselves navigating a spotlight they never asked for. And the real question wasn't whether they'd be photographed together at the next tournament. It was whether the tennis world would recognize where the line between appreciation and invasion had been crossed.